Labor Day commemoration on Sunday, organized by the Egyptian Trade Union Federation, delivering a 10-minute televised address. Egypt still expects much from its workers, the president said, in one of the several statements emphasizing workers' cooperation with the state. President Sisi promised an increased foreign investment, saying that it would translate into increased employment opportunities for Egypt's youth and decent living standards for the country's workers. To be discussing this and more, we're joined with the head of the External Relations, the Egyptian Trade Union Federation, Mr. Mustafa Rustum. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, sir. We need to know more about the Labor Day, as it is not only celebrated here in Egypt, but it's celebrated worldwide. How important this day is for the workers?
Thank you very much. It's a very important question. This celebration has started in 1869, and then it moves forward till now. And I think we can say that despite the fact that it has started in the United States, but they choose a separate date, they choose the 1st of September, not the 1st of May. But anyway, internationally, all the people celebrate the 1st of May, which is a kind of memorandum of all the struggle of the workers around the whole world for fixing working hours and all the benefits that have been taken by during this time.
It's definitely an important day. It sheds some light on, or maybe it's like an annual event for people to rethink directions and moves and so on. One of the long-waited for events too is the reopening of hundreds of factories in Egypt that has been closed for financial struggles ever since the revolution in 2011. So part of the talks is around how Tahya Masr Fund is going to be supporting the reopening of those factories. So how do you see it promising?
Actually, we can mention the celebration of the 1st of May this time in Egypt is different. It has come with various signs. And actually, as soon as President Sisi has launched this, what we call it, the Sharm el-Sheikh conference, it has been a very important step. And afterwards, we have been trying to work through the green job or the green document, which is very important for the sustainable development. What we can mention, this celebration this time has been very important because it's an important sign, not only in Egypt but internationally. As you know, when President Sisi and the celebration of the 1st of May in Egypt is followed by international organization to see how Egypt is moving ahead. And we can mention that by the declaration of the drafting of 3 important laws, trade union law, draft law, the labor law, has been very important sign that Egypt is going ahead by respecting the international labor law conventions. Meanwhile, coming back to the question of the reopening of the closing factories, I think there are special committees now have been formed to be able to restructure these factories. The presentation, the donation given by President Sisi from Tahya Masr Fund to Extraordinary Fund of the Ministry of Power is very important because it is a very important sign that Egyptians are, what we call it, are protected by the president of the country. And this goes very well for the social dialogue. There is a kind of protection for the working forces in Egypt.
Sir, when the Labor Day comes this occasion, we see around the world many strikes and many demonstrations, and lots of workers have their own demands. So why is that?
Actually, we can mention it is not kind of what we call it, the lack of education, because strike must be the last solution. If you like to fill in a demand, you can do it through proper ways. And to adhere to strikes and sit-ins only, it is not the right thing. We can see in Europe, as example, a lot of the strike, when they call for a strike, it is the last step. But going to the strike as the only weapon, it is not a good way. It means a lack of education, a lack of collective bargaining system in the country itself.
Yes. And if we move back to the situation maybe in Egypt and the reopening of factories and the employment opportunities, and this is usually the positive outlook that we're looking forward to as Egyptians.
Inshallah.
From this point, do you think with the latest speech by President Abdel Fattah Sisi, what do you see? What do you see would would be a turnaround for the situation today? Because everybody is looking forward for this specific turnaround, especially for factories and manufacturing, which will help everything else from an economical perspective.
Actually, not only what we call it, what has been mentioned by His Excellency Mr. Abdel Fattah Sisi in this conference, but also it has been underlined in the economic conference in Sharm el-Sheikh when it has been first launched to attract investors. This has been coped by the green job policy. It has been approved by the former Prime Minister, Engineer Ibrahim Mehleb, and it has been the demand of Egyptian Trade Union Federation to be able to go through and to adapt our laws with the international arena. In other words, you don't need, when you sign an international agreement with a multinational, to go through your own papers, your own laws. When we mention for them the terminology, a green job policy, it means a lot for them. A respect of human rights, respect of environment, respect of sustainable development. So when we go through all this now, I think the atmosphere is paved the way now to be able to go through, and it will be better further after the enacting from the parliament for the labor code. It means it will be able to go smoothly in the industrial relation between employers and workers in the same time.
Sir, being a representative of the Egyptian Trade Union Federation, what are the complaints that comes to you?
Actually, a lot of complaints come regarding sometimes there is a kind of misunderstanding, sometimes there is a kind of conflict between workers and employers, and sometimes also there is a kind of interference from the union. So when there is a kind of what we call a problem, it is approached now not only from the center headquarters, it is through 26 local federations around the whole country. So it comes to us, and we begin to see, we have a legal department, it goes through it, and if the worker is what we call is fit for this, we have a direct discussion with the Egyptian Federation of Industries, and if we don't achieve a solution, we adhere to the reconciliation with the Ministry of Manpower. If not, sometimes with multinationals, we call international federations, like in the cement factory as examples. We have a very good model with some cement factories. So when we have a problem with the management here, they are obliged through international agreement to respect the laws and trade union laws in the country itself. And then we go through the problems without exaggeration or without the workers go in the streets or the strikes or the city. So it is not a good way to solve the problem in our case, in our country. Our country needs to go through sustainable development. It cannot come with a lot of disputes.
Emerging, economies and countries rely and depend on manufacturing and definitely workers eventually. So and we've seen a lot of models that have been really successful, like China and India, and Egypt also has the different categories of workers that can enable a better economy and situation. So in your point of view, given what's there today, given the culture of the workers, the laws and everything, what needs to be changed or enhanced in order to open up the opportunities to have a better economy and a better opportunity for Egypt?
Education and training. And when we talk about education, we have to understand education, it doesn't mean that I am graduated from a university or of a training school. They must have continuous education. And this model we see in a lot of countries around the whole world. That is, have been a very important point, has been underlined by Egypt Trade Union Federation leadership. 1 week or 10 days before the celebration of the 1st of May, our Secretary General has been in China discussing the improvement of the worker education through the introduction of a new system of education. And you know what is China for the whole world. So we have been able to try to sign a joint protocol for the Worker Education Association to be able to restructure the education system. On the other way, we are asking the training system. The training system must cope with international modernization, not only just to rely upon the graduation of a set of workers, but we must have a good education and the training for him. And you can see, I give you also an example from the building trade. We have a special high-level training center has been built to be able to raise the education of the work and the skills of the workers to be able to cope with an international arena.
Yes.
Sir, whenever we hear the complaints of the workers who are working for a certain investor, they always complain of low wages. And of course they do not get high pensions and health insurance. So why these points in particular, this is a continuous issue. Why these points are not tackled?
No, this is a problem because of, we have been passing difficult circumstances in our countries since 2011. And that is why we have sometimes a lack of working chains, which is not true. Because Syrians who are here in Egypt have proved for us we don't have a problem of unemployment. And the lack of education for the workers himself, and to be able, like in the past, to sign, as he signed his contract, he signed his resignation in the same time, which is not accepted. So the problem is we have a framework of working. That is why now we are about to change. We have been asking through the new labor code to cover all the workers, even in the private sector, to be able to tackle all these issues. And when we talk about a raise of the salary, it means I have to go through everything in details. That is why now we are giving a good eye for the collective bargaining courses given at the Worker University, and the institutes belong to the Worker Education Association.
Yes. Beyond the education, do you think there are also aspects of, because we're speaking here about trade and we're speaking about exporting, do you think also we need further skills with, sales skills, communication skills in order to have this sort of communication? Because we see a lot of small businesses and medium businesses that are having really appealing prices and products, but they don't have the capacity or the skills to communicate with vendors from abroad in order to support their exports. So is this part of any program today that can support these? Because it's very noticeable that there are a lot of small and medium businesses that are ready to export, but they don't really have the communication skills or not able to bridge the gap with importers.
Actually, this is a very important question, has been raised by Mr. Azerdi Mazhoud, the Secretary General of Organization of African Trade Union Unity. It's a big African or a trade union organization. We have arranged a high-level visit for his good self last year, and we have been able to open channel with the Egyptian Federation of Industries, and I think we will be able to work either locally together or outside the Egyptian market, because as you know, to go abroad it is not an easy task, but we need also some facilitators to be able to go through these markets. It is not an easy task. And also I think with the International Labour Organization system now, International Labour Organization work in Egypt, I think they have been able to work a very important program for export in Egypt in two fields, textile and food industries, and they have been able to provide a very good education, but unfortunately they have not been under the spot for the media, but they have been known as through the work they have done in 10th of Ramadan and some industrial zones.
Yes, and but we're here speaking about also, governorates and people who don't really have access or information to the International Labour Organization.
No, they don't have to go through the International Labour Organization. They knock our doors and the Egyptian Federation of Industries doors, and then we can help them, because actually these people, when they launch a course, they launch you the education, the system, and everything. That is why you find in the 10th
so
of
the
Ramadan.
awareness is through the Trade Union Federation?
Through the Trade Union Federation and the Federation of Industries. Not only us, employers and workers meanwhile, because ILO is supporting the three partners, workers, employers, and also the government. So they can find a very good way to go through the people, because they have launched small councils to help to go through each industrial zone alone, together.
If you may allow me, what is the process? So I'm a farmer and I have my products, I'm ready to export it. I don't have the language, I have a language barrier, I have technology barrier, I'm not able to market my product to other countries. I need to learn those skills. What is the right approach? What is the step-by-step approach? Is it approaching the Trade Union Federation and hence they provide insights about what's happening, or is it the international?
I get your point now. With the farming, it's different story, because it needs a kind of cooperation between cooperatives and the Egyptian Trade Union Federation. Okay. Because cooperatives, they can help 3 or 4, 5, 6 to work together. And don't forget, we have the Egyptian General Trade Union of Agriculture Workers, have been working through FAO to be able to help the peasants. It has been a few years ago to make a kind of packing process, but it has been in a small scale. And after the revolution, the project has stopped a little bit, but we hope we go through, inshallah, and continue.
So farming would be a different story. What would the workers, or normal manufacturers want?
Actually, now
what would you advise them to do?
I tell you, now we have to be able to, what we call it, to encourage the self-employed system, because youth and most of us don't rely upon his economy. And I think this will not be able to go through except by the changing of education itself. And when the changing of the restructuring of the thinking itself of the families and the people about this education system. And so when we go through a training school, it must be graduated from a faculty. And I think through this education, this will help him to get an economy and the process to get a training course, like what is raised by the Egyptian Social Fund. It is very important because they help to be able, after privatization, to help the workers to run their own projects.
Mr. Mustafa Rostom, head of the External Relations Egyptian Trade Union Federation, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we're moving to a quick break, so please stay tuned.
وجدت دولة مصر من أشقائها العرب مواقف تبرهن على أخوة